Exeter Jail has now become Timepiece nightclub.
This was the main prison for Exeter and the surrounding area. Nearby towns or cities would have been, there was another prison in Plymouth and there was another prison in Taunton in Somerset. So this was the high prison for Devon itself. We moved in here in 1997. We were in the old governor's house, the prison governor's house next door. We moved in there in 91 and we swapped over with the British Legion in 1997. Now we have some details here going back to the 18th century county prison in Exeter. And I'm just going to read what a local historian actually said about the building. Do you want me to do that?
That's great, yeah.
It said there were 80 men and women imprisoned in one place for various offences. A wooden trellis separated the men from the women, but the bars were so widely spaced that it allowed passage not merely for hands and heads, but almost the whole body. However, shackles wound round with an iron hook restricted them individually so that there was scope to sit and lie down, but not room really to move from the spot. People were entrusted to go round the prisoners with buckets for the call of nature, which seems absolutely dreadful considering this was just a few hundred years ago.
You were talking last night about the bread baking
Yes.
that they did before they were transported.
Yeah. Basically, the prisoners, before they were deported, the night before, they spent the night in an adjoining building, which still has the original bread ovens, and I'm led to believe that they were allowed to bake a quantity of bread for the journey, and then they were escorted from Exeter to Topsham with the bread that they had baked the night before. Then the convict ship, which were a common site in Topsham, which was then the major port in Exeter. I think the convict ship arrived every 30 days, and then they boarded the ship and were then transported. These few lines stuck in my head. This was a description of the jail in the 18th century, and it said the county jail lay just below Exeter Castle, a living tomb, a sink of filth, pestilence, and where numerous perished from sheer starvation. And that was published in the 1700s. So I think that gives us some insight into the conditions that the prisoners lived in. We just can't imagine the conditions. You know, how they must have suffered, you know, it's just incredible.
The trials were held at Exeter Castle, and Dudley showed us around the grounds.
Now this one has been done up. This one has been brought in here. We're using it to function. In fact, there was actually a party in here last night. It was the opening of the festival.
Okay, hence the artwork.
Well, no, those are original Andy Warhol ones.
Yeah.
There's another one up there, The Last Supper. This used to be the public gallery area, same as the one on the other side. But it would actually seat nearly 40 people up here.
Okay.
So this is more modern than what it would have been in the days. But bearing in mind the rooms was virtually the same sort of size. So it's only, it's only in 64, I think it's 1964, when they actually updated them. This is where the jury made their mind up.
In March 1785, the Lent Assizes began in Exeter. The 4 men had been sentenced to death for their crimes, but by some stroke of luck, before the judges left town, 2 of the 4 were granted a respite and a free pardon. Their respite was to be transported beyond the seas for 7 years. Where exactly this was to be would be unknown at the time of the trial, but surely John Small was pleased to escape the gallows. Perhaps his career at sea was the reason for this, but whatever the case, I'm eternally grateful, for without this, I would not be here. And so John went back to Exeter Jail until 1786, when he was transported to the Dunkirk prison ship, which was moored in Millbrook Lane. He stayed here until his final transport to the Charlotte, on which he would be transported to Australia.
On the 26th of April 1786, John Small was already aboard the prison ship Dunkirk. He could have never imagined that his future wife was here at the Old Bailey, facing trial for her second charge of theft. Both charges were brought on by John and Mary Hickman. We don't know much about where Mary Parker was born, but we do know that she lived here in Duke Street, which has since been renamed Coptic Street. We first hear about her in April 1785, when she was seized for stealing 2 tablecloths to the value of 5 shillings from her landlady, Mrs. Mary Hickman. Mary was held at New Prison Clerkenwell, which stood on this site. It's now a school. Mary Hickman and Henry Baker were witnesses at the trial and were paid 15 and 10 shillings respectively. Sentenced to a further 6 months' detention, she worked as a prison nurse. Only 3 short weeks after her release from Clerkenwell, Mary found herself in Duke Street and in trouble again. On the night of 19th of April 1786, Mary Hickman was informed there's a thief in the house. She went to investigate and found Mary Parker coming down the stairs. The apparent stolen goods weren't even in her possession, and Mary's defence was that she was there to get a character reference from one of the residents of the house. But she was convicted and sentenced to transportation beyond the seas for 7 years.
London.
Mary was held in Newgate Prison for the next 8 months and 10 days until she was transported to the Lady Penrhyn, which stood here on the Thames somewhere. They then set sail to Plymouth to meet the rest of the fleet. When my father met my mother, he told her that he had a First Fleet ancestor, but at the time he was under the impression that he was a Marine. It was not until later on that they discovered John Small to be a convict. At the time, people treated their convict past as a bit of a shameful secret. It seems now that Australians are more open and proud of their convict past.